Love you. Well, they turned on my mic. They want to hear me. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you this morning? Up and at 'em? Are we up and at 'em, Aunt? Oh, look who's here. Hi, Randy. Hi, Michael. I stand before you this morning with 34 years of experience, and God's not finished with me yet. And I tell you that because of certain things that have happened in my life with great joy, and because of other things that have happened in my life, and I just go, wow. Wow. It is an amazing thing to me to stop and think about all those years, what they were worth, what they did, how they are, and what's going on now. So what Bonnie didn't tell you was, in February, I went to our annual meeting and received what they refer to as a Minister's Meritorious Award for 2017. It's for all the work I've done. And it's a very special award. And then it became more than just going up to Denver and receiving that award. It became, I received the award on a Monday night, and on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, I was sitting in a panel. So for those of you who have paneled, you know what I'm talking about. This was a brand new panel. The panel was called, we're going to organize, we're going to recognize, we're going to say you as a chaplain are now a part of our movement. And so I became not only the first chaplain in our movement, I became the first recognized, licensed, and all the rest of that stuff. So that anybody can go back to home office and say, oh, you know about this person. And of course, what happened at that time was, since I hadn't been giving them any notes, I had not been sending my letter of call. I had not been recognized. They had no file on me. So I can get up and tell you that I've been in this movement and a minister for 34 years, and they don't have it all there, because a lot of times I was someplace else, like Mesita Valley Hospice. So now, because of the work that we started a year ago, the middle of May, we are now giving people recognition in our movement to say that they are chaplains and they are accredited and passed by our movement. That's a prayer that took 30 years, in case you wonder about what happened to the last prayer you did. It didn't get lost. Nothing gets lost in the universe. So, what you can expect from me is I'm going to do some teaching this morning. And part of what I'm going to teach about is a lot about my experience in growing up with God. It happens to be something that I started about a year and a half ago when I was speaking someplace. I went, yeah, let's talk about growing up with God. You know, so like, when do you stop asking God to tie your shoelace? And people would laugh and go, really? That's funny. Well, yes it is, and no it isn't. And then as I got along, of course, I'm doing this myself. You know, the ministry isn't about you. It's about me. And that sounds pretty self-serving. But the fact of the matter is that I wouldn't be a minister if I didn't have you. I need you to be there to help me grow. And I need you to help me learn. If I wanted to be an island, I could go do that somewhere, anywhere, in the universe, the hemispheres, who knows, anywhere. I wouldn't need other people around me. So when you get to the point, and I do, I'm not shy about this. I get time when it's like, close the door, don't answer the phone, leave me alone. I began a sabbatical the 1st of May. And the whole sabbatical is about sitting with Spirit. Ernest Holmes talks about Spirit in the textbook, and when he talks about Spirit, he is talking about everything. But Spirit is unformed. And when he talks about God, he's talking about the formed. You and God created together, and you created a form. So being here in New Mexico, of course, I hear Spirit all the time. And one day I suddenly realized that that was exactly what was being said. If I talk to you about Spirit, it's the unformed. If I talk to you about God, it's that which is formed. Does that help anybody in their growth? This is all unformed. The energy of Spirit is everywhere. It's one of the reasons why Mary Baker Eddy got into a big thing between Christian Science and religious science. When she was doing Christian Science, the scientists said, life is everywhere and in everything. And that was not part of her belief. And so she didn't step into that belief, but continued to call things mortal error. As I was growing up as a child in Sunday school, and my teachers would talk about this, I would say, but God's everywhere, everywhere. So when you are moving into your divine understanding, because that's what you're doing, that's part of what you're doing here. We can call it metaphysics, we can call it unity, we can call it religious science, we can call it Christian Science, we can call it whatever form it shows up for, us. But for me, at this point in my growth, if I didn't have all of you, I wouldn't be in that growing path, because you are a mirror for me to take a good look at myself. And sometimes we don't like what we see, do we? No. Sometimes we don't like what we see people do. And we have an opinion about that. And sometimes we like what they do, and we have an opinion about that. Do you recognize any of this? And I have an opinion about this, and I have an opinion about that. But I have discovered in working with Spirit that the less opinions I have, the faster things move through for me to grow through. Does that make sense? Because that's true. That's why it makes sense. And I'll give you a couple of examples. A friend of mine asked me for a key and said, either bring the key back or give it to so-and-so and they'll bring it back. Well, so-and-so didn't want to bring the key back. So-and-so didn't want the responsibility. And I sat down and looked at it and talked with Spirit about it at one point and said, okay, what do I need to deal with? Because, it's like I had my opinions about that, and they had their opinions about this, and the job wasn't getting done. Does anybody relate to this? Can you see this in a daily event in your life? Is there something that's not getting done because you have an opinion about it? Good, somebody recognizes it. That opinion stops it there, right where it is. Now, that could be good and that can be bad. Remember, Spirit is as we create it. It doesn't stop because I have an opinion. Something just doesn't get done. And it doesn't stop because this person has an opinion. It just doesn't get done. Now, if the two of us can get together and I can say to this person, you know, we're blocking this whole thing. Let's stop blocking it. And then I give that person the key and they give the key back, or I take the key and give it. It doesn't matter. But two people have stopped blocking it and it gets done. Can you hear what I'm saying? Okay. So the other way is this. I created an opinion about how I was being treated. So this is what I'm trying to show you is look at how spirit moves through this whole thing. So I'm here and I've got an opinion about what I will do as a human being. I will no longer speak there because, and then I tell them. And I hear back that they're devastated by what I said. And I said, oh, that's too bad. And then I hear this. When I stopped, they found someone else who exactly fits the picture of what they want. Now, where's your ego with that one? Well, I'll tell you where my ego is. My ego is very happy about it. Because what do I want for them? I want the highest good. This is not, see, I can say it's about me, and it is, but it's about me learning, and it's about spirit working through all of our lives for the highest good. How many in here do not believe that? Does spirit work in your life for the highest good? Yes. Yes. Please say yes. Yes. Okay. You're not supposed to go to sleep while I'm talking. You're supposed to think, but don't go to sleep. This is basically my teaching for this morning. Do I need to go any further? I just saw one of my favorite people walk in. Okay, so you're growing up with spirit. Do you know that? Do you know that here in your heart? Do you know you're growing up with spirit? Because you are. And the tough times are just like I said, because we block it, and sometimes when we block it, it still works, and sometimes when we block it, it doesn't work. But you know, there's a lot of blocking going on in this world right now. A lot of blocking. And what's it bringing about? Yeah. Chaos. What else? We've already had war. It's just not been quite as open as it is. It could lead us to war. Yes, I agree. What else? Waking up. You know, I spent 7 years with the Buddhists, with the monks, meditating every morning at 5 o'clock with the monks. And they have this little thing they do. When you're meditating and you're not meditating, they go around with this thing that, you know, you've seen a sorter that they use in the offices, you know, where it's A, B, and you sort all these papers. Well, if you take everything out of there, that's sort of like what they hit you with. They hit you, but it's light, you know, but it's just like having somebody hit you with one of those over the shoulder, so you wake up. Wake up. So I remember I'd had a long night, you know how you are when you're younger, and I'm sitting against the wall because it's holding me up while I'm doing my morning meditations. And he can't hit me because I don't have any space behind me. So he took this feather and did this under my nose. was like, that was bad enough. That was very light, but it worked. Things come along to wake us up. Things come along to say, look, I'm here. You don't like this. You have opinions about this, but wake up. Let's get through it. It happens in all avenues. When I'm working with people who are dying, and I remember somebody saying to me, I had the most awful experience the other day. And I said, what was that? And he said, one of my myths died. M-Y-T-H-S. One of my myths died today. And I said, what happened? And he said, a friend of mine came to see me, and she's tall and willowy and beautiful and always has been a model and an actress and all this stuff. She came to see me and she said things were horrible, that she was homeless, that she was obviously in deep grief in her soul about her life. And I said, so what myth died? And he said, the myth about people who are beautiful and talented and artistic, and they've been all these wonderful things, that anything horrible could happen to them. And this man was 75 years old. And he was appalled that this had happened, and that he recognized it as a dying myth. He recognized that what he was seeing was his myth, his expectation of what was happening. Somebody said to me, for a religious scientist, for somebody who's been in metaphysics all their life, you're remarkably grounded. And I went, what does that mean? And they said, well, because most of the people that I meet are, just happy and everything's wonderful. And I said, yes, and they are. But I am sitting with you, and I've got my eyes wide open. And I am not lying. I am not lying to myself about what I see in front of me. This is a way life is working, and I am going to sit with it. There isn't any other way you can be a chaplain with people. I worked the ER at UCLA. I worked the ER. I loved working the ER. All the rest of the chaplains went, oh, I'll pass. Bonny will do it. Remember that commercial? Give it to Mikey. You know what you did? It was me. And my supervisor used to say to everybody, no, you can't do that to her. You have to take your turns and be responsible and go out there and learn what you need to learn. You can't just push it off on somebody else. Does this vibrate with anybody about how you might have done things in your life? It's time to grow up. It's time to take a good look at what's in front of you, and then let's move higher. Let's move out. We can see that there's a lot of blocking in the world. We can see it. It isn't just the United States. It's the world. We see this. We see people going back into mean attitudes. We thought, my God, when I was in my 20s and I was doing women's rights, and I sit here and I look at some of the stuff I hear, and I'm going, where'd it go? What happened to it? What was I doing with all that work that I was doing, marching and whatever else I was doing? Where is it? It's still there. It's still there. Do not think that the work that you did is gone. It is not. Your work is a testimony to the very life that you're living. And I tell people this all the time. Please do not get caught up in the effect, because that is not what is going on. You are seeing other people in their soul journey processing their stuff. They have to do it to grow. But it's not your growth if you've already done it. Just don't get sucked into it. Make your choice. Isn't that what we do with Spirit? We choose. Ernest Holmes said, to learn how to think is to learn how to live. Man is using a power which is infinite. It's all around you. And one of my favorites, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who did all the death and dying work, she said, learn to get in touch with the silence within yourself and know that everything in life has purpose. There are no mistakes, no coincidences. All events are blessings, blessings given to us to learn from. When we are growing up with Spirit and God, we are presented with things to grow from. And if you push every button I've got, I'm going to spend a lot of time with you. You know why? Because you are my teacher. My mother was my teacher. She was masterful. And half the time, she would say things and she didn't even realize what she was saying. So while I'm standing there watching her drunk, having a temper tantrum on the floor, and I'm looking down at her, and trust me, at that point, there was no thought. I mean, it was like, this is my mother. Who is this person? And she looks up at me, and she looks me in the eye, and she says, you are going to have to learn how to love me just like I am. And that was one of my first wake-up calls. People would say to me, how can you be in metaphysics and go in and see these sick bodies? People falling apart, people in crisis, people in the extreme. And I go, well, some of us have to do it. There is that part of myself that doesn't shy away from what the vision, what it looks like visually. We don't shy away from it. And as all the practitioners I've ever taught will tell you, you must see past the effect. When I go into those rooms and I see broken bodies, I also see broken souls. When I see people doing things that they're getting better, they're healing, they're well, the presence within me is a presence of healing. And that I am very clear about. And so as I go to visit people who feel the need for that presence, so when I'm training chaplains, I am training chaplains to be the healing presence that they are, that they need to know they are. If I asked how many of you in this room think you're a healing presence, how many of you would raise your hand? No, high, so everyone else can see it. All right. Would I like you in my room with me? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. You bet I would. Would you think I'd like you there when I'm dying? Yes, I would. Because we die, what is that statement? We die daily. Something within us goes away because it doesn't need to be there anymore, and Spirit is right there helping you move right into the next concept of healing and revealing the spiritual truth. I think some of you have heard that before. So to finish what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says, there are no mistakes, no coincidences. All events are blessings given to us to learn from. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. So I recently took a sabbatical. The 1st of May, I took a sabbatical from CSL and from doing much of anything. Because Spirit has finally gotten through to me, where I finally listened, and Spirit said, sit down and be quiet. Sounded a little rougher than that, but that was about the gist of it. And so I did. I said, okay. And I'm laughing while Teresa's doing the meditation up here because I've been in meditation so much, I don't think I go out of it anymore. And sometimes that causes problems because, like I walked off at the car rental place and left my suitcase sitting there because I was so in the zone. It was like, I'm going to Las Cruces, bye. So I had to go back and pick up my suitcase. So it is that place within yourself to listen to the silence. It is so important. And go with your guidance from there. So Spirit and I are recreating my life. And I'm excited. Well, I'm sort of excited because one of the things Spirit keeps telling me I need to do is write, and I keep ignoring it. Write? Who, me? No. So finally, Spirit has my attention, and I'm listening. And I said, okay, so what am I going to write about? Oh, that. Okay. So I'm going to a funeral. I'm doing it. I'm driving up Candelaria. And as I'm driving up Candelaria, I'm looking at the mountains, the East Mountains, who are just so beautiful, and we've had so much rain up there. And everything is really clear till you get to the top of the mountain, and these clouds are just coming over the top of the mountain. Just, beginning to show. And I'm driving up here, and it just became an extended part of that. And I went, I'm up there on the mountain, and I'm walking into the cloud of unknowing. Because I'm sitting and listening. And I get to the memorial service, and I meet all these really wonderful people, and I do my shtick. For a woman whose mother I'm talking about. Her mother was like me, wide open, a server to the world, whole thing, wonderful woman. Her daughter is a Christian, but she wants that service for her mother. She loves her mother so much that she wants that service to represent her mother. And when I showed up, I'd never met her. And by the time we got finished talking, she said, "My mother would have loved you." Take your opinions and put them aside. Go forward into what you have been asked to do. So we did the service. And she said, there was a reception in part of the building. And she said, come, to the reception. I said, let me put my stuff in my car. And I'll be right back. And I go out to my car, and I've got a flat tire. I was in that zone in which there were no judgments. I looked at the tire and I went, oh. So I go back into my hostess and I say, I've got a flat tire. And she said, there's a auto repair shop right next door. And it's Saturday. She said, I think they're open. I saw people over there. So I go over and I wander in, and this woman comes up to me in the office. As I'm walking through the door, and I open the door, she says, I am so glad you're here. And I went, ooh. She said, welcome. She said, did you come to get an oil change? And I said, no, I actually came because I have a flat tire. And she goes, oh, the guys can help you with that. So gentleman steps, out from behind the wherever he's standing. He comes up to me and he says, "Give me the key. I'll take care of it." So I give him the key. I'm telling you, this is in the zone. There's no questions. There's no, should I give you my key? Who are you? It was like, go forward. I give him my key and I turned to her and she said, "Come on over here and sit down with me and talk to me." And I'm thinking to myself, when was the last time any of you were greeted in somebody's business like this? This is amazing. So I go over and I sit down. She said, so I said that the car was parked in the mortuary parking lot. And I told him where I was and all that kind of stuff. So she had heard that. She said, were you attending a memorial service? And I said, no, I was doing it. And you could see her take that fact in and do nothing with it. And she turned to me and she said, oh, how nice. And so I asked her, I said, I thought it was open. Is it open? She said, no, this is a special thing that we do one Saturday a month. I said, what is it? Tell me. She said, we do free oil changes for anybody who needs it. Vets, older people who can't afford it, people on limited income, the disabled. This is what we do. And I looked at her and I said, sounds like a ministry to me. And she said, yes, it is. No time when I was talking to her did I ever get a judgment. So then she says to me, well, tell me about the service, in other words, tell me about yourself. She says to me, are you a minister? And I went, yes. And I told her how long I'd been a minister and that I had been asked to do the service and I had come to do the service. Still no judgment. So pretty soon I see the guys come back and obviously they've gotten everything done. So I said to her, excuse me, I'm going to go check and see what's going on with my tire. And I walked back into the room where they had all the equipment and where they work. And there's 4 guys standing there. One of them is the pastor. One of them is the owner, and 2 of them are just, as I found out, from the church. Okay, so I walk up, and not only do they have my tire, but they rooted around in my trunk and pulled out my spare, which was a job all by itself, and it was flat, so they fixed it too. And I just couldn't help but say, I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much. And they said, well, okay, so we'll put this back on your car and then you'll be ready to go. And I said, fine. So I went in and sat down and talked to the lady for a few more minutes. And then I got up and I went next door to the funeral home, told my host and hostess that, the car was fixed now and people were starting to leave. And I said, I saw this food sitting out there and I said to my hostess, would it be something you could do to take your extra food and take it over to them because they will be there until 1 o'clock and they don't have anything but coffee and donuts? And she said, I'd love to do that. And I went out, and as I go out the door to my car, I see these 4 guys coming at me. And I'm going, thank you so much. And I said, and I think our host and hostess are going to bring some food over for you guys. So we're all standing there. 2 guys here, owner here, pastor here. And I'm thanking them and telling them how much. And I turned to the pastor and I said, and you're going to be hearing from me. And he looks at me and says, yes, I know. And then he says, don't you love it when everybody gets out of the way and lets God work for the higher purpose? They were all from a place in Albuquerque called Hoffman Town Church. It's not defined, but I will tell you, it's Baptist. And I said, you obviously are here to serve. And he looked at me and he said, that's why I'm going to be hearing from you again. And I went home. He gave me his card. I went home, got an envelope out, and wrote them a check for their service to the world. Because that is exactly what it is. And now I want to go meet them and see what he does. He's not the main minister. He's just in charge of families and outreach events, and so he's one apparently of many. And as I talked to my neighbors, they all knew the church because they knew their service, because they knew how they served. I guess in New Jersey at one of the really bad weather events back there, they got a big truck and they let everybody in Albuquerque know they were collecting stuff, and then they drove the truck back out to the town and opened it up in the town center and told everybody to come and help themselves. Where are we going with our blocks? When do we take this thing we have learned and begin to use it to broaden our horizons, to move to a higher consciousness of who and what we are? Everyone in this room has a part in that. Everyone in the, so the next time you have a thought about how scrungy that person might look, or how you don't like the way they speak, or you don't like the color of their skin, or you don't like what religion they belong to, give it to God. Give it away. Because what works is that we stand together as a people, one life, one spirit, one planet. And whose is that? Who says that? They're on billboards all over LA. And if you don't know, it doesn't matter, because I'm not going to tell you. But the movement is from block to unblock, and it's our responsibility as we grow with God. That's my message.